We are live. Are we good to go? There you are.
Hello.
I got another message. We are here. Hello. Greetings. Welcome, everybody. This has been a delayed process. That's the frustrating part.
Extended delayed.
Well, the other frustrating
Uh,
part was the editing was the frustrating part. We are going live to basically premiere some videos, to share videos. We pre-recorded videos to talk about what it kind of says in my title, researching old newspapers. Topic of Florida and subtopics of anything to do with Florida. Hurricanes, which is weather, wildlife, farming, anything, and even other topics that might come up in a newspaper. So I like to credit the inspiring, I call him analog, archivist, analog. I appreciate what he's doing. It's really inspiring and really eye opening to try and do this ourselves with looking at newspapers from long ago and then try and make it presentable. Because when I'm sitting there reading it myself, I'm like, wow, the information. But then trying to think of a way to share it, I'm like, wow, the information isn't coming across the way I think it would be. Hopefully, possibly, you know, entertaining enough to be motivating, I want to say inspiring, to do research for yourself or something along those lines. Always, that's something. So, God, I haven't done, is that, we haven't done this in a month, have we?
yeah, it's been a while since we did a live, so.
I feel so out of sync, but yet I do want to say hello to everybody. You want to share, go down the list and say hello to everybody with our special greetings?
Yeah,
I
you're
want to do
right.
that because we are
We have
live.
not we haven't done this in a while, so
Yeah.
yes, let's do that. Yes,
That
and
feels good. Going live.
of course, and a
Sound check.
favorite one.
What's my name? It's Dunk. Say hello to my chocolate blend.
Don't mind if I do.
Dunkachina. Dunkachina.
God, it feels so. I'm so out of sync. It feels so weird. Keep growing.
And and for everybody else.
Blow them on the lawn.
Yeah.
We do know a couple other channels are premiering or going live with the same time frame of 6:30 tonight. It's a Saturday. So like I was trying to do this for Thursday, accidentally scheduled it for Wednesday, and I was like, I don't know how that happened, but I look at the calendar wrong. So we're going to play videos, me reading, visual slideshow, and then there's about three different videos. Hopefully, we can wrap it up in an hour. I'm not trying to push it or rush it. I just want to keep it like on
A little,
topic and
a
like
little
a tight
tighter.
fit. Hopefully, this is something that we can do from here on out with maybe this topic, or we'll see where it goes.
Uh,
All right. You want to play the first video?
all right,
I'm
let's
excited.
roll.
Into the next share screen of topics. I have to reset this. Library of Congress. This is going to be from the Albuquerque Morning Journal from October 12th of 1909. And the other one is also Library of Congress. The Lafayette Falcon from Tennessee, January 9th, 1920. Those are the two I will be reading from. Whilst we play a lovely visual on the topic of hurricanes.
The Slurricanes in Florida.
Swirling vortex of rearranging that property, that tree, that house.
Oh, there we
The whole
go.
shebang. Full screen ready?
Yep.
All right. Howling gale sweeps over summer seas. Key West seas front mass of shapeless wreckage. Key West, Florida, October 11th. While the hurricane is not the worst Key West has ever experienced, the local observer, the local weather observer said tonight, 100 vessels were in the harbor. Of these, only 5 remained at anchor. The others having either gone to sea or were smashed upon the beaches. The streets along the waterfront, this is like very faded ink. The streets along the waterfront are a mass of wreckage. Brick as well as frame buildings. I guess that means wooden frame. Yeah, okay. Brick as well as frame buildings throughout the city suffered from the hurricane, and many miraculous escapes from death have been reported. Several factories were, that is so fainted, partly destroyed, including, there's a list. I'm not going to read the list. But this is interesting. The storm reached its height at 1 o'clock when the winds had an estimated velocity of 100 miles an hour. This was a hard, steady blow from 8 to 3 o'clock p.m. when the winds began to die, and at 3 o'clock the center of the hurricane had passed. But it said it had passed here. Railway laborers cut off from the mainland. From Miami, Florida, October 11th, all efforts of officials of the Florida East Coast Railroad here to get into communications with the men at work. On 3,000 workmen are employed at the construction work on the lower keys. Grave fears are held for the safety of these men. In the hurricane of 1906, 140 men lost their lives. So this is 3 years before. This article's from 1909. It is said that the construction camps are better fortified now, to this date of this article.
Oh, now they are. Now they're better fortified.
Well, 3 years later, you always make improvements. There's always a stronger storm to come and just kick your rear end in. Government life-saving stations in danger zone. The life-saving service lost many of its boats during the last hurricane off of the Gulf Coast. The nearest establishment to the Sand Key section is the Biscayne Bay, I don't say that right. Biscayne, I'm saying it wrong. House of Refuge, more than 100 miles north of the Keys. Wow, that's pretty far. So there was some tidbits of information. A little bit, especially when, it's 1909. Travel is a little difficult back then. All right, the next article. Champion of Destruction. This is also
Champions of Destruction.
1920. To fight the hurricane offensively is folly. For ages, mankind has been able to wage only a defensive war against its terrifying drives, and these efforts have been, until modern times, pitifully feeble. Pitifully.
Pitifully.
Man's only defense is to be forewarned. That it has been possible in the present generation to reduce death tolls of hurricane to a minimum is due to the marvelous service maintained by the United States Weather Bureau. The headquarters of the Weather Bureau, located in the nation's capital, of course, are the nerve center of the unique organization which extends across the continent and also far out to sea. Since many vessels cooperate with the Bureau, that's why you better cooperate, by making daily reports. This is 1920. I had to do more research into the Weather Bureau.
The Weather Bureau.
The Weather Bureau.
The Bureau.
Yeah. Okay. Great storm sighted. Early in September, a hurricane destined to devastate a wide area bordering the Gulf of Mexico reared its head like a great monster 1,000 miles to the southeast of the United States, along the islands of the Caribbean. Right? You could see that. You could see it coming. There's really nothing better than like I could see it coming. Standing. That's another reason for observation towers, right? With like water towers and observation towers. As it was to what gave it birth, not even the scientists know. That was the next sentence. As to what gave it birth, scientists don't even know. The forces that propagated all of these storms are shrouded in mystery. Well, according to today, it comes off of the Sahara. Is that what they say?
Yeah, they come off of Africa, the tropical waves.
This particular hurricane was born in remote tropical waters, probably about September 5th. A few hundred miles north of the center was disturbance. A few hundred miles north of the center of disturbance, the sea was relatively calm. Passengers on a steamer passing this way had no intimidation of the terrific force that was generating off to the south. It's like, I can't. It just seems like the grammar is so different. I'm like, okay, I'll just pick at it. Early reports of this hurricane were mingered. That's not even manager. That's mingered. Early reports of the hurricane were mingered indeed. Mingered. The first intimation of the coming of disaster was received September 8th, 3 days later. Wow. The daily forecast for that date stated that a tropical storm had appeared to the southeast of Key West, but as to its extent or its course, the chief forecaster at the time could only conjecture. Despite his long experience in his profession, it was inevitable that the forecaster should be anxious. Every meteorologist who is forecasting at such a time is anxious. He had been on duty in Simpsons past. Oh my gosh, is that how they spelled seasons back then? That's like really squished, smudged. Seasons passed, not a single hurricane appeared. July and October, more than one such storm had left a devastation across many states. The forecaster knew that millions of dollars, not millions of lives, but millions of dollars worth of cargoes about to sail from the Atlantic and Gulf ports might be lost if he failed. Wow. I know there's a lot at stake when you consider certain things, but wow. Oh my goodness. All right, that's a good enough reading for now. We're going to go to a special message from our unofficial sponsor.
Yes, which will include Hurricane Andrew, which is historically recorded as one of the worst devastating hurricanes ever to hit. So
don't spoil it.
Let's see what they have here.
Yep, don't spoil it.
It is really hard to imagine that it was 30 years ago when this terrible storm hit us here in South Dade.
Public officials gathering in Homestead today, marking a major milestone, 30 years since the landfall of Hurricane Andrew, which remains one of the single most destructive storms in Florida's history.
It destroyed 63,000 homes. It left 175,000 people homeless.
The Category 5 hurricane making landfall in August of 1992, devastating several parts of southwest Miami-Dade, including Homestead and Cutler Ridge, now called Cutler Bay. While speaking at the Homestead Air Reserve Base, officials who were in Miami-Dade at the time recounted where they were and how the state's storm readiness has dramatically improved in the years since.
Andrew was an important mark in building code reform. Officials learned so much in surveying the damage, about compromising garage doors, roof structures, basically how to hold homes together.
Tomorrow, I do have the track of Hurricane Andrew. Obviously started as a tropical system, quickly gained strength and had a large impact from a storm surge in the Bahamas of 23 feet to rainfall of almost a foot across parts of Louisiana and, of course, the devastating landfall across southeast Florida as a Category 5 hurricane. The max sustained winds with Andrew, 170 miles an hour.
Strong enough to thrust 2x4s through trees. The storm also exposed serious flaws in the way we built our homes. The destruction from Andrew eventually led to a total transformation in Florida's building code.
30 years ago, this video of Hurricane Andrew stunned the world. The compact Category 5 storm changed the coastline of Florida, building codes, and the way we forecast hurricanes.
Forecasting hurricanes was a lot more challenging back in 1992.
We really didn't think you could forecast where a hurricane was going to go more than about a day or two in advance. So the average error, for example, 3 days out, was from Miami to Jacksonville.
That's about 300 miles. Now fast forward 30 years to the present day. The average track error 3 days out is about 100 miles. That's the same distance from Tampa to... The advancement in technology is a big reason why forecasts have improved so much. For example, Hurricane Hunter aircrafts like this now use sensors called microwave radiometers that can incredibly estimate a storm's strength based on how much foam is created on top of the sea. Another big improvement since Hurricane Andrew, weather satellites. And the newest generation of weather satellites allow us to track storms in high definition with much more detail and data. All this data gets fed into our forecast models, which gives us a much clearer picture where a storm will go and how strong it could get. Andrew ended up being the strongest type of storm on Earth, a Category 5 hurricane. And as we look back on the 30-year anniversary, one of the biggest lessons learned is making sure we're always prepared for the worst. Because as Andrew taught us, sometimes the worst can happen.
You're muted.
I was just saying, it never gets boring or uninteresting like watching that. There's always something to take away from it. Like having a video, pictures, recordings, a lot more intaking of going, wow, the destruction. Trying to read about it, sometimes lacking the understanding of the force of rearranging, whole neighborhoods, let alone whole states and counties.
Yeah, it's hard to picture 170-mile-an-hour wind. Now, I can somewhat personally attest to Hurricane Andrew because I lived in Pinellas County near Tampa when it came through in '92. And wow. The
Everybody,
crazy thing is,
you're buffering.
I buffered. My father at the time, he was a gas hauler, and he actually drove throughout Hurricane Andrew trying to get diesel fuel more than anything to all of the worker trucks to, redo power lines, so on and so forth. So he did work even through the winds, and he goes, the many years we've been here, he said, Andrew, he's like, I hope no one ever has to see something like that again.
Everybody we meet says the same thing about Andrew from '92.
Anyone who was around Andrew in Florida, just mention the name and they'll just go, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to talk about. But the point is, going back to the old historical hurricanes. See, it's ironic that in '92 they had a very hard time even tracking them then. And the articles you were reading were from what? 1920?
1909, 1920.
So when Key West and, the Star Forts, if you were, when they were getting bombarded for hundreds of years with these hurricanes, there was no warning.
You had to be higher up the further out you could see. So that's why I was wondering, one of the pictures has it looks like a water tower or a lighthouse. And they didn't know any other way to communicate or see what was coming. And they obviously didn't know, apparently, what created these massive storms, because they complained about 100 miles, 100 miles per hour. And then the video talking about Andrew was 175 miles an hour.
Yeah, Andrew was one of the top recorded destructions due to the massive wind. That was just, wow.
To have the visuals we do now, and then to read anything from the past and personal accounts or testimonies of what took place is, it's nice to draw a better picture of what was going on and the impact that it had, because they were also working on expanding the bridges down to the Keys, Key West, as far as it goes. They were working on just building up the towns, just doing their thing. Just the weather's nice 90% of the time. And then out of nowhere, you have this devastation. And those islands are pretty much sea level, if not maybe 5 feet. Unless you're sea dredging, bringing up dirt to build up the islands, I mean, you still need like 30 feet above seawater just to feel a little safe. But a hurricane come, it can just wipe it all off.
Yeah, and to think that these star forts mainly, there's 2 star forts down there, everybody. There's one in Key West itself, and then there's one over in Dry Tortuga, which is, I think, maybe 50, 80 miles
Close to 80
west
miles.
of Key West. And these forts, they've been there through how many hurricanes?
Because even the last one we had that came
still
through, Hurricane Ian that came through last September, went right over Dry Tortuga. Hey, welcome everybody.
So
We're just figuring things out.
It's pretty amazing to have hurricane after hurricane after hurricane constantly hitting Key West, where there's star forts, and those buildings are still there.
A little weathered.
Now, ironically, now with the modern day, when Andrew hit, now all of a sudden building codes and how we built stuff were improved due to Hurricane Andrew, rightfully so. 170 mile an hour wind, it's gonna just do exactly what it did. So now, are they building better? Sure, but there's always room for improvements.
Today, in the past couple of years, they are not building better.
No,
it's almost like going back 150 years. They're not building better. They're acting like nothing will ever happen and topple over a house or wipe off a county from the land. And I'm like, nowadays, there's so many people complaining about buying homes, even in Florida, and new subdivisions that are popping up, buying homes in any state. They are cutting so many corners. I'll just leave it at that. There's a lot of videos on YouTube out there with building code issues. So on that note, we're going to go into... Oh, there's a question or a statement. Thinking about how many hurricanes. Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. Just hurricane after hurricane, just bombarding the two.
Even if it's a Category 1.
The 2 star forts are hit more than anything I want to say in Florida, and yet they're still standing. Right? The material and what they did, it's still standing, but yet it hits land where there's residential and the buildings are flattened. Why are we not building what still stands, right?
We don't build it like we used to.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. Frankie in the house.
Hey.
Frankie in the house.
We need to update our welcome list of saying hi to everybody. We have a few ideas. We got to put them together. We just haven't done this in a while.
Yes.
Want to get back in the swing of things, but so we got another video to play regarding Florida in old newspaper research. It's gonna dive into somewhat of the land, but also everything connects, everything ties together.
Yes, it does.
So as soon as you got it up, you can go ahead and play it, babe.
Yep, I got it. I just need a second here.
1 second.
All right, here we go.
Go and grab you a cup of OJ and enjoy.
Here we go.
Yeah. I'm going to share screen. Already got up and running. Library of Congress is where I'm getting these articles from. Basically, we're going to play a fun video whilst I read them. Play that funky video.
All right. Let's do it.
Full screen. Good to go?
Good to go.
Okay. The Florida Agriculturalist. That's a tongue twister for me. From DeLand, Florida. The land. DeLand. It's DeLand is Florida, baby. November 22nd, 1893. Big returns from South Florida orchards. The kind to plant, how to make them yield heavy crops of early and fine fruits. The latest in peaches. Why is there such a diversity of opinion as to the value of the peach as a money crop in South Florida? Asked a pineapple interviewer. The well-known fruit grower and entomologist in a state where natural conditions differ with every locality, where the soil changes with every division fence, and where a large portion of fruit culturists are novice or mature or amateurs, matures. You cannot expect uniformity in results, especially with the peach. It's such a peach. Why can't you?
Don't expect such a thing.
Which is exacting in its requirements and will not adapt itself to uncongenial surroundings, as will the orange or the pear. Interesting. But where it receives proper attention on good average soil, does it pay? Does it pay? What are the best varieties for South Florida? The peaches are grown in other peach regions of the country, and which are known to homologists as the Persian race or strain. Kind of sounds, yeah. Proved a complete failure in Peninsula, Florida. Not many years ago, the only peach we grew were native seedlings, not of the Persian race. I didn't know there was actually that many different races or seedlings of different, like there's different bunch of kinds of apples, but peaches, I had no idea.
Lots of peaches, no fuzzy navels.
The Persian race, but having a long ancestry of their own, sometimes called the Spanish race or the strain. Mixing me up with that nasty TV show. But these riped too late in the season to be profitable market fruit. Florida must get the market ahead of the Alexanders of Georgia. So it's all about money. What else is new? Well, they had to find the right kind of peach. Had to ripen sooner than later. That's even back in 1893. It was all about money. Doesn't really seem to add up there. That was a pun that I didn't plan. What varieties of this class do you recommend? Well, that depends on the object the grower has in mind. Usually money, I think. While all varieties of this semi-tropic race of peaches are early as compared to other peaches, there is a difference in their time of ripening. They can be divided into early and very early varieties. Stick to the very early sorts. On the other hand, Mr. Tabor says in a recent letter, I have found that the early varieties, those that follow the very early sorts, even more profitable than the latter. Again, it's all about money. Still from the Florida agriculture. Okay. Let's say it again. Still from Library of Congress, the Florida Agriculturalist, DeLand, Florida, of November 22nd, 1893. There's actually an ad. This ad is quite interesting as I was reading one of them. Do you know we have nearly all important economic and fruit plants of the tropics and warm climates of the world? Do you know that the sheams, just broached by our horticulturist was already a living fact in our establishment? Some Florida people up to the times know this and are quietly taking advantage of the opportunity of getting rare plants and trees. We can supply plants of aloe, bamboo, chamfor, cinnamon, coffee, Delborgia, Escuteria, ficus. I always like that name, ficus. Gambui, hemp, ironbark, jujube, coal, logwood, mahogany, nutmeg, olive, orange, pepper, quercus, rice paper, strychnine tea, upas. I am just butchering some of these things. Nay, that's hyphenated. Oh, nay, it's vanilla. Wax myrtle, xylem moss, yucca, none of the cactus, Zinberg, Zing, and hundreds of others. So many more names that I could just butcher. You can tell when I know it, and you can tell when I don't know it. But I was just like, rare plants, you say? Rare plants. On to the next paragraph. This one is from Rutland Herald out of Vermont, dated May 16th, 1843. Just a small little paragraph about the orange groves of Florida. The orange groves of Florida have been visited during the past year by the ravages of insects, which threatens the total destruction of the branch of production. The insects is of the Coccus family. There's a fold in the paper. Very minute and covers the bark, leaves, and fruit, exhausting the tree of its juices and destroying it to the root. Whole groves have been understood that a similar insect once appeared in the groves of the south of Europe. Mr. Levy, representative of the territory, in a letter to Daniel Webster, these names sound so familiar for other reasons, requesting that letters may be addressed to the diplomatic agents abroad to obtain an accurate history of this plague. States that have the ravages of this insect can be arrested. I was like,
they're gonna arrest.
They're gonna be arrested.
they're gonna get out handcuffs and start arresting the bugs.
There is no doubt that the peninsula of Florida is capable of furnishing completely the markets of the whole union with orange, lemon, and lime. Just so you know, if you don't, they're coming for you. They're gonna arrest you.
Wow.
Okay.
Poor insects.
The insects.
They
That's what I was like, arrested. All right, Library of Congress, Evening Star, Washington, D.C., dated March 6, 1952. So we got a span of 100 years with a couple article clippings. Florida groves yield plentiful oranges from St. Pete and Creek Salad. That's just the name of the title. The paragraph I'm reading from, though. I'm not reading the whole thing. Oranges are a featured item on the March list of plentiful from the United States Department of Agriculture that I can well understand after driving past mile upon mile of citrus groves in Florida last week. Not me, but the article says that. You begin to wonder who is going to consume them all. Millions of bushels go into frozen orange concentrate, of course, to supply the market with fresh juice long after the fruit comes off the tree. That is not fresh juice.
Fresh juice.
Well, this was the 50s, so it was better than nothing.
Only the freshest.
Yeah. The byproduct of this juice industry is quite amazing. In the beginning, the hulls, which is the peel, I guess, were dumped in wastelands, fields, or whatever space was available. That's interesting. I'm like, we have mounds and mounds of orange peels, the hulls, like just heaps of it everywhere. But, like, I think that was a plague or something. That idea soon proved to be highly undesirable from sanitary conditions. Alone to say nothing of lack of space and the expense of carting off the hulls. Science came to the rescue, and now the hulls are turned into revenue. Science and math, who would have thought? When an orange is squeezed too hard, you get a peel oil. So, yeah, you get the oil out of the peel.
You
This
hear
is the
that?
50s.
You hear that, Dr. Longo? Do not squeeze your juice too hard.
Maybe it was where I was. Oh, I gotta say it again. When the orange is squeezed too hard, you get a peel oil. So the first byproduct to come from the shells of the, and there's a thing, there's a paper fold in the newspaper, an oil that is used as a base for inexpensive perfumes. Why can't they be expensive? Why do we all got all this cheap shit going on? Anywho, then molasses is distilled out of the hulls. I did not know that. That sounds disgusting. Molasses is distilled out of the hulls as a basic feed for cattle. It's put into long, narrow troughs and mixed with the citrus meal made from the chopped and dried hulls. Cattle thrive on this mixture, and they like it as well. I really hope you asked the cow if they actually liked it instead of just insinuating. Because, really? My. Okay, I hope that music wasn't too loud while I was reading it. And I was definitely struggling in one of those little articles. If not, maybe two of them. Okay, so that's it for now with me reading. And now we're going to have a word from our unofficial sponsor.
Indeed.
Oranges were first brought to Florida in the 16th century by early Spanish inhabitants, but citrus has an even earlier history than that. The first reference to citrus date back to about 2200 BC in China, and by 319 BC, varieties of citrus trees had made their way to Europe. Early citrus trees were planted in and around the city of St. Augustine and grew wild around the state before being commercially planted in the 19th century. Some of the earliest groves sprang up along the St. Johns River on Florida's east coast and spread across the peninsula towards Tampa. Florida's unique climate and soil made it ideal for growing citrus. Different varieties were developed and perfected in Florida during this time period by horticulture pioneers such as Lou Jim Gong. In 1893, Florida's annual citrus production was nearly 5 million boxes. The harsh winter of 1894-1895 destroyed many of Florida's groves. Farmers moved further south to avoid the harsh winters. During World War II, with the invention of frozen concentrated orange juice, Florida was at the forefront of wartime production of this vitamin C-rich citrus product, shipping it all over the world. The orange has become a central part of Florida's identity. In 1909, the orange blossom was designated as Florida's official flower, and more recently, the orange as the official state fruit. In 1967, orange juice was named Florida's official state beverage. There's even a county named after what early pioneers called the Golden Apple. By the end of the 20th century, citrus production in Florida had dropped considerably from its peak in the 1950s. Diseases like citrus greening, overseas competition, and the loss of available croplands to housing and commercial development have diminished production in recent years. Today, Florida still produces more oranges than any other region in the world except Brazil, and is the #1 producer of grapefruit.
Alrighty. How do we like that?
Location, location, location for your oranges.
Wow.
For sure.
They're gonna handcuff the insects.
They had a
Sorry.
bug problem back then. We get bug problems today. You think over 150 years, they'd have it figured out. That's what kept popping up in my mind as I'm reading some of these articles, different topics relates to, they have the same problems back then. We have the same problems today. I'm saying, going like, we can't figure out a solution. Because even if a newer, stronger bug comes around, it shouldn't be that much more to probably actually deal with it. But there is one connection so far between the hurricane article and the oranges, I'll call them article, is that science came to the rescue, or science had no idea yet. Even 100 years ago, 150 years ago, they were trying to rely on science for all the answers. I'm just going to go a little bit of common sense, data collecting. You can see connections and what's going on to what's not going on. Now, because they said they had to go further south, that also causes a problem should a good hurricane show up and just wipe it off the map. So you got to worry about the weather no matter what, because they had a horrible freeze and then they went further south. Then more than likely you're not going to have that type of hurricane too often, and sometimes it just kind of goes around Florida. But you can have a freeze definitely every winter if it comes low enough. That's why even when we moved to Florida, I was like, we need to get further enough south. I don't want to feel any cold. I don't want to see one snowflake. Because it can happen if you're still too far north in Florida.
Take care, Frankie. Thanks for being here, Frankie.
See you later. Thanks. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for checking out what information we got going on. So we have one more video for this live stream. We're trying to keep it like tight together, organized, on topic.
A little more.
Somewhat, add information, questions, answers.
I was actually gonna add something right there, and I'm like,
Usually you
left,
just,
and I was like,
oh, that threw you off, not me.
Yeah, it actually kind of threw me off there. So,
Frankie, you threw it off.
You
threw it off.
You threw it off.
So.
Oh my goodness.
Alrighty. Anything else you want to add about the oranges? I mean, you grew up with Pinellas County. You would always tell me that you had orange trees and grapefruit trees that you could just walk around.
Yeah, in my backyard, it was awesome because in our backyard we had a humongous white and pink grapefruit tree, along with a tangerine tree. And I think there was another one. There was 4. Those 2 small ones, which was the tangerine, and I can't think of the other one, but the 2 big ones just were the white and pink grapefruit trees. And we would actually have so much fruit, we couldn't give it away. It was ridiculous. And, but the thing is...
early 90s?
Now, not to be crazy, but we would have fruit rats back there due to so much fruit.
Rats. R-A-T?
Yes, rats. R-A-T-S.
The size of a small dog.
Oh no, the fruit rats are big.
Okay, medium-sized dog?
They're big.
30 pounds?
And
20, 30 pounds?
But that's why we really started trying to give away fruit. There was so much fruit, it was ridiculous. But when it comes to the freezing weather, obviously the northern panhandle of Florida, they will get freezing temperatures more so. Obviously, they're up there. I grew up near Tampa, Pinellas County, where that freeze will just get close enough, but it stays around, I want to say 35 to 38 degrees Fahrenheit as the lowest of the low would get. So it's just above that freeze marker, but it won't get any colder. It'll always get warmer, but it'll never get any colder. So that's the main reason, again, why JJ pointed out when we moved back to this state, well, for me anyway, when we moved down to Florida, I definitely wanted to make sure that we had that buffer, you know. But fruit-wise, yeah, it could be really hard on orange groves, of course. And
Now,
when it comes to the hurricanes, now that you brought that up, I'm not going to pull it up because whatever, time. The east coast of the Atlantic, the entire east coast, from Jacksonville all the way down to the Keys, I call that hurricane headquarters because 9 times out of 10, if there's any hurricane, it's going to hit the east coast because they always come from Africa, generally speaking, as tropical waves off of Africa, and then they go into the Caribbean. Now they can go under Cuba, Dominican Republic, or north of that, depending on which way the currents go. You know, you have the upper and level shear winds, atmosphere winds, to help steer stuff, along with, of course, you have the Gulf Stream, which helps steer. So there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of factors in the
we're not going to list all the
for
factors.
certain. So anyway,
but less likely. Less likely.
But if you follow the East Coast, you're probably going to get hit. Then the southwest of Florida, which is like
Unless
Naples, stuff
over,
like that, they generally kind of get
Florida.
it. But if you look up Hernando County down to Sarasota, like Hillsborough,
Tampa Bay,
the Tampa Bay region,
Manatee River,
we don't get very much. Now we will get the wave bands of hurricanes, tropical storms. We'll get the whiptails, the wave bands, and something that most people don't know: the back end of all hurricanes is the worst. It's the back end. It's not the front. It's not the top. It's always that east to south, east south, east to south. That is by worst part to get there. So, alrighty, enough of that.
Speaking of temperamental, you just never know which way it's going to go. We got one last video to share with everybody, and then we'll wrap it up for this live stream. So we're going to carry on with information of fun.
Alrighty, where is it?
Do the robot.
I know, right?
We'll do like the whirlwind of.
Alrighty. All right. I got it located and we're good to go. Here we go.
All right. We get the ball rolling.
I'm having my orange juice in Florida.
Is it Florida orange juice or just orange juice in Florida?
Well, it's Tropicana, so it does say it's from
Florida,
made down here.
Yeah, I'm sure it's one of the best kind there is. All right, article, the newspaper, Library of Congress, the Florida Sentinel. I got a message. Pensacola, Florida, January 26, 1900. We're going to do it even, right number. We're going to go over 120 years ago. for the Florida Sentinel. The article I'm going to read is down here called Deadly Habits. We're going to play a visual video whilst I read it, so you guys will be a little more entertained, as I would be sometimes.
Here we go.
And we're full screen. Deadly Habits. 1900 Deadly Habits. Let's see. The woman who is addicted to the terrible morphine habit knows that she is rapidly going down the steep hill that leads to death. There are thousands of other women rushing down the same incline, but they don't know it. They find themselves suffering from nervousness, headache, despondency, irritability, and a dozen other symptoms of female troubles. Moving on. For relief, they turn to the many alcoholic stimulants, malt extracts, and other compounds so widely advertised to cure the ailments of women. Okay. These produce a false stimulation. I won't go there. And
False stimulation.
And the sufferer finds more and more as time passes on, and soon become an unwitting slave to strong drink. What a weekly, not weekly as in calendar, but weekly woman needs is Dr. Pierce's favorite prescription, which contains not a grain of opium or a single drop of alcohol or other dangerous stimulant.
Not a grain.
Not a grain. It acts directly upon the womanly organs, stopping drains. I have no idea what that is. Restoring displacements. Sounds like a back problem. And having a wonderfully beneficial effect upon the general health. Suffering women who wish to consult Dr. R.V. Pierce himself, lovely, it's a man that knows everything about a woman, can do so by mail, addressing him at Buffalo, New York. I know somebody in Buffalo. He makes no charge whatsoever for advice. Personal testimony from Mrs. Raina Hensel of Ohio. I've been troubled with chronic constipation and female wickedness, and doctored with different physicians, none of whom seemed to help me.
Female wickedness.
Wickedness. Wickedness.
Female wickedness.
Wickedness. No, it's weakness. Just. I thought I would try your medicines. I did so with good results. Took 2, that's TWO, bottles of Dr. Pierce's Golden Medical Discovery. And one of his favorite prescriptions. And I can say I am cured of my troubles. That would be women troubles, female troubles. Dr. Pierce's and his medicines, they do a world of good to those who give them a good trial. If you want a book that tells all about women's diseases, ask a man, and how to treat them at home, send 21-cent stamps to Dr. Pierce to pay for postage. and he will mail you a free copy of his great 1,000-page illustrated Common Sense Medical Advisor
For free.
Well, you have to pay foot postage. I don't know what. Yeah, that's weird. For a heavier, handsome cloth binding, 31-cent stamps. It is the grandest medical book for popular reading ever written. The end. The end. Like, 1900. Female troubles. Okay. And now a word from our sponsor. Not really. I'm just going to call it that. Now a word from our sponsor. To elaborate more on female troubles. Apparently, nothing's changed, baby.
Well, Mr. Bradshaw, what's on your mind?
Bearings, Inspector.
She's a good one, too. Just look at that record.
Okay, now, Walt, you've had your little joke. Give her to somebody else. I ask for a man.
We don't have a man with her qualifications. Seriously, Brad, if you treat her right, she might make you a darn good employee.
What do you mean, treat her right?
Get that chip off your shoulder. What's wrong with her?
She's a woman, isn't she?
Now, wait a minute. You got a lot of women in your department. What's wrong with one more?
Did you ever hear of the straw that broke the camel's back?
They're good workers. Accurate, quick to catch mistakes, a lot of patience.
Yeah, but that comes out of books. I work with them, mister. I know what happens.
What does happen?
Well, it's a long story.
Come on now, tell me. What does happen? Maybe I've been misinformed.
Not so long ago, you sent me a girl by the name of Myrtle Malloy. Remember?
I remember.
As per her qualifications, I assigned her to an inspection bench. Well, in a matter of days, that bench looked more like her dressing table. And then came the day when...
Joe, will you take your stuff back to table 9? That'll be your bench for the time being.
Okay, Chief.
Myrtle, we're moving you to table number 10.
Is something wrong, Mr. Bradshaw?
No, nothing's wrong. We just need this space for something else.
Well, I sure hate to give it up. It's been a nice place to work. The light's good here, and it's nicely situated right in the middle of things. I just began to feel at home.
Well, I'm sorry, Myrtle, but table 10 will have to be your work area for the time being.
You mean there's liable to be another change?
There's always that possibility.
Well, I certainly hope I'm not moved every other day.
With man, no trouble at all. Tell him what you want, and he does it. But with Myrtle, a little move is a big production.
Okay.
Now, wait a minute. You asked me, now let me tell you. Now, here's another problem.
Oh, Mr. Bradshaw, I wanted to tell you that the date is set for my marriage. I'll be leaving soon.
Marriage? Mm-hmm. I thought you just got engaged.
Well, I told you about it 6 months ago. We were only waiting till we could find a place to live.
6 months ago? Oh, brother. Well, how soon are you leaving?
Well, the end of next week.
Oh, that'll really put us in a bind around here. It takes time to break in a relief girl.
Yes, I know it does. I wondered.
Why didn't you say something? I didn't realize you were getting married right away.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Bradshaw, but I really thought you knew. We've all been talking about it.
Okay, Brad, but how many blushing brides do you have? Besides, what's all this got to do with Dolly, the new girl? She's already married. And she's a qualified bearings inspector.
You know what I was doing when this new girl came in a few minutes ago?
No.
I was trying... problems of all, Walt. Now, in your books, it comes under the general heading of absenteeism among women employees. Yesterday, I spent an hour and a half teaching one of our girls what she needed to know in order to start on the oscilloscope today. This morning, she isn't here, so I had to use somebody else. I don't think the girl we got on it now ever pick it up, so I'll probably have to find somebody else.
Question. All these things you've been talking about, marriage, absenteeism, personality problems, aren't they really just a part of life?
Part of a woman's life, maybe. But I can remember the good old days when there were all men in my department, and we didn't have these problems.
You didn't have the production output you've got now either. Look, Brad, you've got a new bearings inspector who happens to be a woman. You need someone, and there isn't a man available. It seems to me that whether the gal adds up to trouble or not is pretty much up to you.
And you're muted.
I'm like, welcome to the problems of today and yesterday. Nothing has changed. Even science can't solve that problem. I don't think so.
Oh, I'm afraid of doctors too, trust. I won't go unless I'm missing limbs or it's got to be bad. I don't.
They're not needed.
They're not.
They're not needed for everyday little things. So, hello, welcome. We're about to wrap it up. She's like, I'm late. It's okay. It's okay. That's why we were like, premiere/live stream. It'll be sitting there. Get to it when you get to it, because everybody else is going live or doing premieres, and I'm like, I know it's a busy day.
We'll do it for Sherry one more time. Here you go, Sherry.
Oh. You know, I was kind of thinking of updating it to, was it the Tupac song of California Love? She's in California. And I was like, we could update it and really rock it out. Like, California. Ba-da-da-da-da. But it might be like too long of a sample. Get copy strike. Maybe.
Yes, we again. We tried to do this Thursday night, right? But you know,
yeah.
Because we're viewers ourselves, obviously, we're kind of here and there. This actually gives us a inside look into production and how, you know, so many channels out there, the hours and the time it takes in making
the editing
these videos,
frustrations.
the editing is just, oh my goodness, because
whether you do it by yourself or a team. Wow. And then we are recording through StreamYard, because you don't have to just go live. You can record it and make your own little edited video, sort of. So we recorded it through StreamYard, and we kept having some audio problems. And we were trying to figure out what the problem was and how to fix it. And then he's got it in the editing software to blend everything. And sometimes it'll misalign the audio with the video, and I'm like, okay then, we're just gonna do it tomorrow. Oh no, the other day after that, or the day after that. There was supposed to be a fourth video. I gave up. I'm like, no. We'll save the pirate story for another time. We're gonna do the pirates some other time. It was fun doing the research. Really enjoyed that, but it's the editing. You just want to choke it. technology is not that great and all it's cracked up to be. And I'm sitting there watching all of those vintage films. These are educational. We call them vintage now, but they were educational films that they played at work sites, because that would technically be sexual harassment. That one video, what's Brad's problem? And then other videos that I keep watching, mostly played in what would be like middle school or high school. I was just watching one called Social Acceptance and Social. The titles, they make a lot of sense. I'm sitting there watching them and they're 10 minutes long, and I'm like, they make a lot of sense because we have a lot of problems today. I was just watching a video about a McDonald's getting ransacked, and I'm like, that is not social acceptable behavior. After watching these vintage films, I'm like, we need to somewhat.
Yes, there was supposed to
Some of
be
this
a
stuff is just
pirate.
crazy.
Yes, there was going to be a pirate one, so we'll have to do that.
I
for
even
the
found a
next-
shanty ragtime
That'll be
song.
fun.
These songs are under ragtime genres that are playing in the background. You can go on YouTube. Everything will be listed eventually in the description box. There's so much to list this time.
Yeah.
The songs are ragtime, copyright royalty free, one or the other, however you word it. And there's a lot of songs that are fun to listen to. And I found one that's called Captain Hook, like a ragtime song. I'm like, oh, that'd be great for a pirate theme. Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
pretty
that'll work
much.
out nice.
I'm gonna say wrap it up for now. For me.
So I'm gonna throw in
Analog?
Ben Analog's link. I'm sure everyone knows about him anyway, but you never know. There could
Never
be new
know.
people showing up. So we would really like to attribute special thanks to Ben waking up with Analog,
Yes.
with our broadening our horizons with research capabilities and looking into articles.
Trying to share that is the hard part. Like, I've looked at articles. It's not my favorite topic. I really like maps and photographs more so. I love reading maps, but it's not for everybody. And after a while, I like to zest things up for myself. So watching Analog with the archivist, Analog for a couple months, and you kind of get that little buzz of, do I want to? Can I? Well, I can, but can I make it possible to share it also? Because there's a lot of information out there, and taking little snippets from articles and sharing it was the only way I'm like, I think I could do it. He goes more deep dive into stuff. I'll get there eventually, I think. That's a lot of work. It's fun sitting there reading it, but then you get the whole, I want to share this with everybody. How can I do this? And then you hit some editing snags.
Yeah,
And then life.
which goes along with Somewhere in Time's comment right here, because in a nutshell, I'm the tech support. I do all the video editing and that mesh, whereas JJ, she does most of all the research, where she finds the research, she
The
finds
photos,
the
the
pictures,
articles.
the video. Basically,
The songs.
she sends me everything and says, okay, here you go. You do your tech stuff and basically do the production and put it all together. So
Now, there are times, for whatever reason, I hit a snag and I cannot find something. And I look at Joe and I'm like, it's your time to shine. And he can go find shit too. He's good at it too. But we try not to burn each other out, because there's a life. We have kids, dog, cat, and they like to throw up from time to time. And they got to go out and they need to be fed. And it sounds like, well, life is just simple enough, right? And then something just doesn't stop rolling down the hill. And you're like, fine, that's it. I'm not doing it. I got to go clean this up, and then I'm taking a nap. And I really just want to, read something interesting and have fun, but with the research. But sometimes as the saying goes, it is what it is, I guess. So we're going to do what we can when
Alrighty.
we can. And thanks to
Yes.
everybody for stopping by.
Thanks for being here. And if you have any ideas,
Any input.
thoughts, any input at all, you can put it in the comments section below.
My
after
main
we end
concern
it.
was the audio. So,
Yep. So, alrighty, I'm gonna hit the outro, and we'll catch you
We'll
guys
see
on
y'all
the flip
later.
side.
thanks.
Sending to outer space to find another race. I'm gonna send into outer space to find another race.
Oh, boys! I'm back! Wow, it's popping!
Don't ask questions.
After you. Oh, no, you first.
When you tell somebody something, it depends on what part of the United States you're standing in as to just how dumb you are.
Grandma, you can't just kick me out. I can too.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
If you were waiting for the opportune moment, that was it.